Thank you, Ftika, for your kind introduction. And good day, everyone. And yeah, well, Ftika, with your introduction, you already somehow anticipated the objective of my presentation, that is to raise the awareness among the community, among people dealing with data submission at the FDA, with this addition of the, at least in my experience, what I've seen, overlooked FDA guidance. So this is my agenda. Very simple, two main topics. I will first start by making a recap of what are, let me say, the kind of standard guidance available at the FDA, that FDA made available to establish their data standard submission requirements. And then I will give a quick overview of what this additional, what I call this additional guidance cover, in particular for clinical data standard topics, in particular for CDISC and STM and other. Okay, let's start, as I said, by giving a quick review to the existing key requirements when submitting data to the FDA. As you know, so we have two binding guidelines that have been now established about 9 years ago, 9 years ago, and they come into say production 2 years later in 2006, the end of 2016. So these two binding guidelines, they set the framework for making electronic submission using a set of standard defined by the FDA, and more details are provided in the Study Technical Conformance Guide that is not binding, like many other documents released by the FDA, but this doesn't mean that we are free to follow or not. This guidance provide more details on how the agency, in particular the CDISC, wants certain specific data submission topic to be handled. And this include the use of specific standard. So for this, there is a standard catalog, and more recently, the FDA has also established through the so-called technical rejection criteria some specific rules with some internal tools. For the time being, it's a bit limited in scope. But if the sponsor fail, if the data packages submitted by the sponsor fail any of these technical rejection criteria, somehow the review, the data set they're not somehow made available to the specific reviewer assigned to your filing, and therefore it means that the submission is somehow put on hold. So we have to pay attention to not failing those criteria. But the standard is not just about data. It's not just CDISC. There are other standards, for example, when for using for clinical terminology, not only the CDISC control terminology, but also external dictionary, for example, for MedDRA, for adverse events coding like MedDRA. But there also the data standard catalog specify also other type of standard, for example, for providing documents. So whenever we provide protocol, SAP as a part of the submission, but also the reviewer guide of our CDISC packages should be in PDF, first of all, and they should follow some specific rules, format, attributes. And last but least, okay, we're not as a this is a very specific skill set that requires specific skill set. There is a different unit handling with the electronic common technical document, but as a data submission specialist, as the one creating these packages, we need to be aware of at least a number of criteria, a number of requirements from the electronic common technical documents criteria, such as, for example, how to name file. There's a number of restriction on, for example, on the length and the type of characters that we could use in naming files. And there's also additional guidance that depends on the specific topic, depending if you are exposed to specific aspect you might also have to consider and also be familiar with. The last one, for example, is maybe not all you're aware, but there are also some. This is nothing to do with CDISC data, but there are some requirement when submitting material in support of pharmacometric analysis, such as PK. So the agency wants that you provide some sort of data packages where you also provide and describe the models that you use in support of the PK analysis. But are we done with that? Is there anything else? Yes, actually, there is something. So I would like maybe if you can make it. As I said, the objective of my presentation is to raise the awareness. But let's see what's the current awareness of this additional guidance. There are 5. So this is just to help. And with the next kind of set of animation, I will prompt some name of guidance. Some of them, 3, are fake, and 5 are the 5 that I want to discuss later on. So just to start, are you aware of any guidance if you working for company working on bioequivalence? For those working on bioequivalence study, are you aware of any specific guidance from the FDA? And does exist this guidance? Don't be afraid. Don't be. Or do you think it exists, even if it's not exposed? Well, the answer is yes, it exists. This is a real guidance. Are you aware, or do you think we need guidance from the FDA specifically for submitting marketing approval requests for treatment of cancer, advanced breast cancer? Well, actually, this is a fake guidance. At least this guidance not defined by the FDA. We have a CDISC Therapeutic as a CDISC TAUG, but of course, I suggest you to consider whenever you work with such a type of trial. But there is not such a guidance released by the FDA. Anyone working on NASH that is not familiar with that, but a specific liver condition? Okay, I guess there are many people from Novo here. Yes, this is actually the most recent guidance released by the FDA. Any guidance released by the FDA covering specific for diabetes? Again, like for breast cancer, this is a fake guidance, but we have a CDISC Therapeutic area user guidance. Anything on vaccine, support vaccine approvals? Yeah, this is correct. Actually, this is very easy because the next presentation is actually about this specific FDA CBER guidance. Anything related to HIV compound, say HIV? Yeah, again, this is a guidance. It's one of the 5, so we have so far identified 4 of those 5 guidance. Any specific guidance recommendation released by the FDA through a guidance setting up some requirements on how to deal with data standard when integrating data from multiple studies for the purpose of submitting integrated summary of safety or integrated summary of thickness? Yeah, different. Huh? Well, actually, I would love to have this because this is still an area where the standard, the available CDISC guidance do not really cover this topic in particular, or there is not really strong consensus among in our industry. Although there was a white paper released a couple of years ago, discussed also with the FDA webinar. But yeah, there is not yet a strong consensus on how we should integrate data into CDISC when for the purpose of SSSG. I also have a poster, by the way, if you want to, that I already discussed with some of you yesterday. And then finally the QT studies technical specification documents. Okay, so first of all these guidance, they are referenced in the study data technical conformance guidance, as well as a number of CDISC Therapeutic user guidance. So if that means that if the guidance, it's specific guidance is listed in there, it means that the FDA expect a bit of the sponsor to follow, to be a bit compliant, to follow the recommendation provided in those guidance. Okay, as I said, let's see more in details what those guidance cover. Yeah, I said 5 guidance. They have been released through more or less in the last 5 years. They don't cover all the same topics. For example, the vaccine technical specification guidance focus only on SCTM. There was some recommendation on CRF design, and yeah, and the guidance doesn't contain specification, detailed specification like the other guidance. So, but it's very detailed in the CBER. In this case, it's very detailed in what they expect. What they will expect certain specific mapping topics are covered by, are handled by the sponsor. The QD studies, it's like the next two, it's only covering add-on topics. It's together with the NASH guidance, is the only guidance providing some documents, some real documents. All the other 4 guidance listed there covering add-on topics, they suggest, they provide some recommendation, they suggest some common sense can say implementation, and they have very specific, very detailed set of specification listing all the variables they expect to see in the other data set they describe, and but they simply list the attributes and what they expect and how the variable should be derived, but they don't have except those 2 examples. So I found myself, even if I went through this guidance just as an exercise, except for vaccine, because we had the submission vaccine. So I found sometimes difficult to follow some of their recommendations because, well, first of all, I don't have the full background on those, on some of those indications, but that I would say in some cases some example could have been provided of how the data set should look like. The HIV, and that's something I will mention later on, it has again only Adam, and same for bioequivalence. You see also that the number of pages, it's quite different. There are some of these guides are quite big, like the bioequivalence is about 50 pages of specification. And the last, as I said, the most recent version, it also contains good example, like some others. It also provides some, for example, for some lab tests or some specific tests that it's not covered yet, not covered yet in this control terminology, suggest some nomenclature, some naming convention, and same for non-standard variables. So what you usually map into supplemental qualifier. Okay, I forgot animation. Okay, quickly on the vaccine technical specification guidance, as I said, it will be covered in a few minutes by our colleague from MST. What I again, it's recommend, the guidance is recommended. It's more or less based, the recommendation they gave, they are based on the recommendation already given in the vaccine CDISC Therapeutic user guidance. And in general, what I can commend this, and what also the MST colleagues after me will probably discuss, it's that this guidance, especially in big organization like MST, could have a big impact. Okay, could have, because sponsors have established their data governance, and then the authority comes with another, and they try to implement as much to add it as much as possible to the standard CDISC, and then the agency comes with another guidance where they may sometimes contradict the guidance by provide for topics where the sponsor has the option to choose. The FDA might say, okay, no, we want this, we want that, and therefore this could pose some challenges, especially with ongoing studies. The EQT guidance was special in there, as it's only covering it's only describing two key analysis data set, one for ACG and for the PK, of course, and the PK analysis. And what I have to say, it's okay. It's providing some example, and because the study that it's used as an example, it's a crossover study. They made there's example on the use of base type variable for those that are familiar with the Adam standard. And there is a recommendation. This is a kind of common sense recommendation given by all the five guidance. The recommendation is to be consistent with the use of terminology when a specific terminology is not standardized by CDISC, for example, for analysis visit. The HIV contains it's only Adam only. It describes 3 data set. In particular, the last one, it's a kind of big ADSL-like. Again, for those familiar with Adam, it contains, I think I counted about 200 pages. So Adam expert, the others might be nasal. It contains a set of not only baseline variables, a set of variables for other several characteristics, other several derived variables in support of efficacy, and many other that I call here summary variable. For example, a flag for variable indicating whether a subject has any ongoing adverse events at the time of under study. So many derived variables like this one in one record per subject. So it's very extremely horizontal structure, not really standard, I would say, or standardizable. But the purpose of this kind of specific request, it's apparently a very specific unit. It helps a lot the reviewer understanding in one single data set what more or less happened to the subject throughout the study. And the bioequivalence guidance, again, it's only covered in Adam, and it discusses ADSL and the number of Adam data set for 3 types of bioequivalence trials. So each one with its own type of study endpoint, and it also gives a kind of standard definition of MITT, modified ITT population. I'm not sure if this is I'm not familiar that much with all the bioequivalence studies. I'm not sure if this is really something we could standardize. And again, like others, he suggests some nomenclature for parameter name in Adam. Last but not least, the most recent, the NASH guidance. This guidance cover with very detailed recommendation and specification for Adam again, both SDTM and Adam. What is interesting to note, it's some recommendation on how to handle event adjudication when, in addition to the investigator, 2 or more peer reviewer are reviewing the study point. So it is a specific topic where in CDISC or in general in the industry we haven't yet reached an agreement on how to handle adjudication. So there is some notes in the guidance, and the recommendation they give here is more or less aligned with actually again a few white paper. Interesting again to note that correctly the some of this guidance they clarify that certain things should be mapped in a specific domain and not like for hepatitis I virus We should not map it in LB. This is a mistake people are still often doing. And also the use of REREC, and this is also the same for another guidance. I now don't remember. It's the recommended way of linking records from different domains like adverse events, adverse events and concomitant medication. For Adam, what again? It's I would like to mention again a topic where there is not yet full consensus on how to handle that, despite the FDA has recognized as a knowledge the need to use more consistently the standard international unit rather than US conventional units. There are still some agencies, some unit of the FDA, some specific reviewer that they still want to see also the US conventional unit. So how to handle the dual standard unit in CDISC, whether you should do it in STM, SQL Qualify, or in Adam. This specific division recommend to do it in Adam with kind of separate parameter for those lab parameters that are concerned by the dual unit reporting. In conclusion, so the question might be, okay, what has been the experience of CITL with their submission on the specific guidance? Did the reviewer explicitly request the sponsor, the CRO, the site helped to follow this guide? Well, our main experience is with the CBR guidance for vaccine submission. As I mentioned before, I'm aware of other colleagues or other friends working for our industry that there's been some specific requirement to follow the HIV guidance. Other than that, I think the colleagues from Novo, they discussed this 2 years ago. They were exposed to specific requests for NASH. So in our experience working with reviewers, so we had very detailed review of our standardization plan, and also the CBR is also asking to submit to the CRF so that they can see how we mapped SDTM. And in our experience, the sponsor came back with a very, very detailed review and with a set of questions. So there was some back and forth before with the sponsor and then with the FDA on the proper answer to provide, and whether or not we should implement the changes requested by the FDA. Because in this specific example, the request came were very close to the end of the study. In some cases, the request couldn't be fulfilled because it was the design, CRF was designed in a way that we could not change, of course. And some others even sometimes will not fully agree with the request we did. Reaching the conclusion, so as I said, recently in about a year ago, and that's from there I had the idea of about a year ago, a sponsor during the BDFS meeting asked us what if our programming team, what knowledge they have about if it was someone in the programming team background, if in the programming team background the programmers were aware of this guidance, and if they were knowledgeable with this guidance, if they knew the context of this guidance. But of course, yeah, my answer was having about 200 programmers in our unit. I mean, a bit difficult to have all programmers aligned with everything. Of course, we have the standard governance that try to follow all the changes that in the standard and all the changes of the new guidance from the FDA. But yeah, so the only possible way is to raise the awareness, so to make sure that people are aware that there could be, if you are working on vaccine, there could be a specific FDA guidance. If not the FDA guidance, there could be a CDISC therapeutic guidance. So it's recommended to follow them. Overall, there are good documents, but we noticed a bit of variability across the different guidance. So better alignment. So it looks like the guidance are written by individuals that belong to a specific unit of the FDA. So a bit of alignment maybe is recommended, and maybe a review from the relevant CDISC team. I know that some CDISC team are reviewing now, for example, the add-on contents, providing feedback. Not sure where we are with that. And yeah, that's it. So if you have any question,